Right, the synchro is done, and well, guess it's time to get moving because this is gonna be a very heckin' long ride. Greetings everyone, this is your Indonesian fellow Fadakwan, and welcome back again for another drawing video. Now it has been so long since I did my previous drawing video. I think it was like quite a month ago. Now since then I haven't been into drawing like ever since because I was also busy with lots of things such as mostly college stuff, and I gotta say so far it's going so well. Maybe. But anyway, as usual, it's gonna be drawing video in one of my favorite drawing software all the time, Synfig Studio. As you can already see from the thumbnail, or if you have watched the teaser video that I have uploaded like few days or few weeks ago, depends on how I ended up uploading this. Yeah, you probably have seen the artwork. It's gonna be something like this. Although the drawing was really simple, as you can see, it's just like a head, body, clothes, background, and stuff. There was actually lots of things happening in the background while I'm drawing this. In fact, this took me like quite a long time. Let's say like 12 hours spread across 2 weeks. Now I'm not doing like the drawing all the time. Sometimes I just going on. I'll just went on and off, and sometimes I just didn't have the time to keep drawing. So yeah, there was lots of breaks in between, but overall it's still like a very long time considering the drawing is that simple. Now the question is, as usual, it's gonna be, how did I do the drawing? How did I do it in a vector drawing software? Well, you're in luck, and hopefully you're ready, because buckle up, we're gonna have a really long ride as I will explain to you in a very most detailed possible how I finished this artwork. In fact, this is gonna be one of the most detailed video I've ever done, hence why it was taking so long to record and edit them all. So here's the sketch that has been drawn a few minutes ago, just to save some time before recording everything. It was done using some outline layers and color overlay to make it stand out from the rest. Although it's quite difficult to do, as you cannot control and transform the lines quickly in case you have to do some design changes along the way. So it's much more recommended to do it on paper or some sort of bitmap digital painting software first, maybe like Krita or Adobe Photoshop. Anyway, the idea here is simple. It's just Kisa-chan in her portrait mode, looking at camera with third quarter head angle, all while half opening her glasses and holding a book. Yep, that's it. Sort of first one wasn't so bad. It's still quite easy and fast. Despite of the uneasiness on line controlling, it's still quite a simple one. But now we're gonna move on to one of the most complicated step ever. Let's just say this is like a quite a hike in the difficulty from here to here. It's gonna be outlining the sketch. But first, I'd like to explain once again the purpose behind this complicated outlining approach. The point of this outlining method is simply to take advantage of the characteristic of vector drawing software, where I would like to use shapes that I can create with these tools to hide unnecessary or excessive lines while drawing. In fact, it will function as the most accurate line eraser ever. That's how it works. This was done in hopes that it could be much easier to restrict the lines that I need to use for outlining, or line arts, whatever you call it. Now that you know the drill, I think it's time for us now to get moving. I started by creating a couple layer, which consists of an advanced outline layer and its linked region as usual. This can be done easily by selecting both of those layers on Spline Tools option, which is this box here. Then I drew a simple unlinked shape consists of 2 vertex points, which is these orange dots, and finally click Make Spline icon from the toolbox. These will be my base layer couple for drawing lines and sculpting them to my desired shapes, so I need to do some more setup before it's safe for me to start outlining. Now the next steps that I'm about to show you is quite complex, in a way that it contains some sort of parameter settings and a bit of a numbers. Also, not to mention, there are some simple principles of layering, so I'll try to explain it as detailed as possible in this one. First, I need to design the default setting for my lines, so I clicked on the line, or the line layer also works too. Click on this parameter tab and start tinkering some setups. My objective right now is to create some sort of small pencil or ink pen looking outlines. Now the stuff in this parameter box looks pretty complicated and menacing, but let's focus on these parameters for now. Outline width, feather, color, tip types on both ends, and cusps. The first parameter is the outline width. This one is simple, as the name speaks for itself. I usually set this to 0.03 centimeters, and I think I'll do the same for this one too. Second one is feather. Feather is a setting that controls the blurriness of the outmost sides of the layer. And for drawing anime/manga characters like this one, I usually set it to 0.01 centimeter, so I can get smooth looking lines, but also not too blurry that it starts to look obscure and vanished. But after all, it still depends on your previous settings on outline width. Next one is color. Again, simple to understand parameter. Just click on the color bar in the parameter and choose your desired outline color using one of three available ways: RGB, YUV, and HSV. I'll much prefer to use HSV color wheel since it gives me more freedom to find the right color. But sometimes I'll also use the other two in case I need to change the color very slightly. Normally, I like to use a graphite-like color or not 100% black color, as I find perfect black color is a bit too strong and dull. Alright, I think this one is good enough for me. Now move on to tip types. These tips can only be seen when your shapes aren't looped together, which is also the reason why there are two settings for tips, for the beginning and the end of the line. These settings allows you to change tip types of those ends, whether it's only one of them or both, like rounded, peak, square, and flat stop. How can we tell which one is the start or the end of the line? Well, it's a bit complicated, but let's just say, in the simplest way possible, that it depends on which vertex did you start or finish your outline in the first place. Anyway, the default settings for both ends are rounded stop, and since those are the settings that I wanted, I'll just leave it there as it is. Just change it to other type when you need to. And the last one, cusps type. Cusps are yeah, sure. I think I got it. To simply put, cusps are folds that forms on sharp curves or U-turns like these ones. Now this one is really important to me because I wanted to create drawings with softer curves even in the sharp edges. But the default setting is sharp cusp, and it looks kinda, well, bad. And the bevel one doesn't help much to fix this problem either. So I decided to go with the best and only alternative at this point, round cusp. Now with all of those setups done, I think it's time for us to start doing some line arts. Well, almost. So you just made a great line setup, but you probably don't want to do that every time you draw each of the lines, aren't you? Yep, me neither. So here's one more step for safety measures and to avoid doing such repetitive tasks. Secure your spline couple by duplicating that couple and separate them from the rest. You can do various things to keep these template couple, as I like to call them dummy couples, safe, such as putting them away from your line art group, group them with a different name, do both of them, or as I'll usually do, create some sort of marking as a separator by simply creating an empty group layer, name it null, and put the dummy couple below them. Think of it as keeping your line settings safe from unfortunate accidents, just like bitmap drawing software, but a little more complicated of course. Now with all of those line settings have been set and secured, I think it's time for us to give our sketch some nice line arts. Just remember to not use these dummy couple that you just secured. Instead, you duplicate or copy them and put them away from that dummy couple. Just, well, you know, safety. Making line arts is simple in Synfig Studio. Just shapen up the line, refine the region splines, then rinse and repeat until you've got the desired line arts on your canvas. Easy, right? Unless when your sketch looks like this. Then you might need some more help. So to get a better idea on the shapes that I'm about to draw, I decided to start with making some rough shapes so I can picture how the final drawing should look like in my head, before then moving on to making more detailed line arts around them. I also grabbed some Kisachan drawings and pictures just for examples purposes and helping me out on proportions and colors. We'll get to the coloring part later on. There are also times when I need to limit down on how far the line should go, while keeping its region shape in the same spot to cover the excessives. As for that, I will just simply go to that line layer and turn on this button here to show that lines with handles. Keep these indigo fellas in mind, they'll come in handy in the future. Right click on the side that you need to cut off and set its before or after cusp to circle. It might take a few tries to figure out which side of these cusps you should take. So in case you messed up, just set it back to interpolate, it should turn it back to normal. And then drag the width handle in the center to set the endpoints for your line. Done! But seriously, in reality, I spent a really long time on this step alone, in which half of them because I was struggling quite hard just to get her proportion right. And boy oh boy, it was quite a pain. The other half is because of the natural principles of layers in vector drawing softwares. You see, each time I added a new line, it also means I added its region layer, meaning that I'm adding 2 layers for every line that I created, thus making it increasingly difficult to keep track on where I should place my spline couple layers as the number of layers keeps growing. Or even worse, making it harder to choose the correct layers positions in the first place. For example, I got stuck on shapes that requires alternate overlay interactions to the same respective layer over and under it. One of them are these neck colors, in which it should go over the neck on the top and below it at the bottom. I've tried to use some fancy masking techniques to keep these colors whole, but in the end, I decided to use 2 separate spline couples for each side of the collar, and they both were placed really far away in between. Another example will be the color parts of the outer brown shirt with those white colors, which also ends with the same fate, although they are a little bit more forgiving since I can still keep those brown colors as one whole shape. I would like to explain those fancy masking tricks, but I won't because they didn't work very well, and also they're super complicated. My brain really hurts just by thinking of them. Well, you know what I said, sometimes simple is so much better. Oh, by the way, you might have already noticed these blank groups with names. This is just so I can still keep track of what kind of shapes that were drawn by the spline couples below them. It also works as an easy search in case I need to find certain layers, which is also why I would call them as the bookmark groups, because they mark things, simple as that. Another side effects from adding more layers, Synfig will gradually becoming much slower, suffering from rendering lots and lots of layers. This affects my layer and canvas navigation speed, and also Synfig Studio's stability. In other words, becomes even more fragile to random crashes. Some of those problems that I have mentioned earlier can be overcome by making use of copy-paste or duplicate function of that couple. Just make sure that you have selected the correct spline couple. As long as you keep them together, you should be able to copy them to any spot and keeping their spline connected to each other. Same also goes with cut-paste function, although this one is much more useful on moving the spline couple to their correct positions. But as for the last one, which is the crash problem, I couldn't find the best solution that will guarantee 0% of crash occurrence while drawing or making art in Synfig Studio. Although I think it's still much better to lower down this risk rather than just keeping it high. So here are a few of the tips that I found to be hopefully useful while doing the drawing Synfig. I found this online or even based on my experience. Well, at least it worked for me, but hopefully it worked for you as well. 1. Keep the canvas from showing too many layers to keep Synfig from rendering too much of them. This can be done by unchecking the checkbox on the leftmost of the layer panel. Just search for the layers that you want to hide and uncheck the box. To put it back in view again, take back the checkbox. This can be very useful when you want to edit a small portion of drawing but you're having too many layers on your own canvas. Next up is to avoid Ctrl-Z or the undo command after you've gone really far to the editing. As you can see, Synfig has some strange behavior when it comes to undoing edits, which in rare occasions can lead to crashes. And the chance is amplified even more when you have made lots of changes throughout the drawing session. So make sure to avoid the Ctrl-Z command when you think you have reached that critical point, or if you really have to, save your work first. Remember, better safe than sorry. The third one is to turn on single thread only CPU settings, which can be very useful if your PC or CPU has more than one core. You can find this setting by clicking on Edit, Preferences, then check the System option on the left. So, what does it exactly do? Well, I don't know much about CPU usage, but it might have something to do with my CPU having 4 cores in it. And it appears that Synfig will normally uses all of these CPU cores when running. While it does make it runs faster, it also means that Synfig is becoming really fragile to crashes. This setting will force Synfig to use only one of those CPU cores, which means sacrificing some speed but also improves its stability quite a lot, I suppose. The next one is one of the most important steps, the failsafe state, or as Synfig will call it, auto backup. If we take a look back to the system preferences again, we can see that exact option right here. As for my Synfig version, which is stable 1.2.2, they had these off by default. So you have to turn this on, then set up the backup interval. I would recommend it to be between 3.5 or 5 minutes. As for my settings, I set it to 3 minutes and 20 seconds. You could set it to lower than 3 minutes, such as 2 or 1 minute. But you'll end up noticing lag spikes while drawing in every few minutes, which is caused by the auto backup doing things on the background and giving you hard times instead. Alright, the last one. This is the super important part. Don't you dare to forget this at all, okay? The last one is save often. I think this one needs no more explanation. Moving on. So finally, after hours and hours of overcoming proportion confusion, annoying layer problems, and random crashes while creating some slightly detailed lines, I finished almost all the rough shaping of the line art that I really need for now. No, we're not done yet. So although we have shaped out these lines to our liking, it still looked pretty bland, very boring and bold and flat. So we're gonna do the next step to make it a little bit more better, giving it some volumes. And to do that, we're gonna make use of the width points. Remember the indigo velas that I just mentioned briefly a few minutes ago? Well, we're gonna play with them even more in this step. As you might have already seen, there are 2 points on each of these width points. One on the center is the width position point, which we can use to determine the placement for this point's settings in its respective line. But its outer point is the one that we're about to tinker right now. This is the actual width handle point, which controls the target width of a line when it reaches that position, based on the previous width position point. And we can use these to create beautiful looking line arts by playing with line weights. So I shaped all the lines with these width points. It did take a while, but not as bad as the last step of outlining monstrosity. And after refining the entire line arts for some extra beauty, we finally reached the end of the second step. At least for now. But that's only because there are a few more lines and details that I had to left out for now, because whether I haven't think of it far enough yet, or I need to reconsider about it a little bit more, such as the ear bit, book, and her glasses. Still, overall, I think it's pretty much safe to move on to the next step, which is my favorite one, is the area coloring. But we'll save that for another time, along with backgrounds, details, and tying up some loose ends as well, hopefully. But that's just because I've spent too much time already just to explain all of these line art shenanigans. And also, I haven't made the script yet. Thank you so much to everyone who watched the first part of this lengthy tutorial series. I know it's not really perfect yet because there are several mistakes here and there, such as bad narratives, bad edits, and some confusing stuff happening around it. But hopefully this gives some sort of insights on how I do these drawing things, and hopefully it gives you some idea on working on Synfig Studio as well. As for the second part, which is gonna be coloring, detailing, background, and tying up some loose ends, I think I'll start working on that in a few weeks after I've uploaded this video. Because right now I need to work on to add more contents to this main channel, and also my new gaming channel, which still has nothing in as for now. So hopefully everything's gonna work out very well. But as for now, thanks again for watching, cheers and love, and I'll see you again next time. Bye bye!